Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at why people keep comparing data to gold. Kind of a weird comparison, right?
Yeah.
I'm really interested to see what this analogy actually means, especially like what it means for you. To really dig into this, we're going to be looking at a source called Data is the New Age Gold.
Yeah, it's more than just a catchy title. It really highlights how important data is, like in today's world.
Yeah.
You know, think about what made gold valuable, like throughout history. It was rare, it was durable, and everyone wanted it. And in a way, those same qualities apply to data today.
That's super interesting, but how can you say that data is rare? I mean, data is everywhere, right?
That's true. But the really valuable data, the kind that can give you an advantage, that's actually pretty rare. Think of companies like Google or Amazon. They didn't just build their businesses on having data, they built them on knowing how to use that data to learn something useful.
So it's like you
Yeah.
have to refine the data to make it valuable, kind of like how you have to process raw gold or to extract the actual gold.
Yeah. Exactly. Like the alchemists of old trying to turn lead into gold. We have data scientists today who are refining raw data into valuable insights.
So rare because the good data is hard to find. What about durability? Gold is super durable, it lasts forever. But data, it's not a
Yeah.
physical thing.
The durability of data comes from the fact that we can copy it. We can store it practically forever. As technology changes, we'll just keep finding new ways to use the same data.
Okay, so rare because the useful data is limited. And durable because we can keep it and use it forever. What about desirability? Gold was desired because it was beautiful and a symbol of wealth. How does data measure up to that?
Well, in today's digital economy, data is like the new form of capital. People want it because it helps them understand patterns, predict behavior, and ultimately make more money and create new innovations.
So companies want data because it basically tells them how to succeed. Is it kind of like how ancient civilizations used gold to get more economic power?
Yeah, you could definitely say that. Data has become a strategic asset, helping companies navigate this crazy modern economy. They use it to anticipate what customers want, optimize their operations, and even create entirely new markets. So yeah, it's no surprise that companies invest so much into acquiring, securing, and analyzing data. It's really become the lifeblood of the digital age.
It really is fascinating how something that you can't even touch, like data,
Yeah.
has such a huge impact on our world. But how does it actually work in the economy? What are some concrete examples of its impact?
Oh, there are tons of examples. Take Netflix, for example. They use data on what people watch to create their own shows. And those shows really connect with their audience. That data-driven approach is a big reason why they are so successful.
Yeah, that's a great example. It's kind of freaky how they always seem to know what I want to watch before I even know it myself. They must have figured out how to use data to make shows that people actually want to see.
They really have. And another example is how companies personalize your recommendations when you shop online. Like Amazon. They look at what you've looked at and bought before, and use that to suggest things you might be interested in. This not only makes the shopping experience better, but also encourages you to buy more.
Yeah, those recommendations get me every time. It's like having a personal shopper who knows my tastes perfectly. It really feels like data is changing how we shop, how we consume entertainment, and even just how we live in the digital world.
Absolutely. It's revolutionizing how businesses work, from understanding their customers to improving their marketing.
So data is basically like a compass that helps businesses navigate the crazy digital economy.
Exactly.
Speaking of navigating, let's take a step back for a second. How did we even get to this point where data is so important? When did this shift happen?
It's been a gradual evolution, but a really transformative one. For a long time, data was just information, like facts and figures written down on paper. But the real change came with the internet.
So the internet was the catalyst. It makes sense. Suddenly we had access to so much information,
Right.
and it just kept growing exponentially.
Yeah, exactly. The internet created this global network connecting people and devices, and it generated massive amounts of data. That explosion of data, combined with how much faster computers were getting, meant we could not only store all that data, but also analyze it in ways we couldn't even imagine before. And that's how data went from just being information to becoming this valuable strategic asset.
So the internet basically unlocked the true potential of data, turning it from a passive resource into this active force shaping the world.
That's a great way to put it. And to understand how powerful and how potentially dangerous data can be, let's look at a real-world example, the Cambridge Analytica scandal. This event really showed just how complex and how risky data can be.
Yeah, the Cambridge Analytica scandal was huge. For anyone who might not know about it, can you give us a quick summary of what happened?
Sure. Basically, this political consulting firm, Cambridge Analytica, they got access to tons of personal data from Facebook users. And they did it without those users knowing or giving their consent. They did it through a personality quiz app that seemed harmless. This app collected data not only from the people who took the quiz, but also from their friends.
So people were unknowingly sharing their data. And their friends' data, too. That's a major breach of trust.
It was. Cambridge Analytica used all that data to figure out the personalities of voters and then used that information to target them with political messages, trying to influence how they would vote.
That's kind of scary, like something out of a dystopian sci-fi movie. Is there any proof that they actually changed the outcome of any elections?
Well, it's still being debated how much influence they really had, but their involvement in the 2016 U.S. presidential election definitely raised some serious concerns about how data can be misused and how it can manipulate people.
Yeah, I remember that everyone was outraged. And that's when people really started to realize how their data could be used without their knowledge. What happened to Facebook after all of that?
Well, Facebook got a lot of heat from both the public and regulators. And in the end, they had to pay a $725 million settlement for violating people's privacy. This whole event really showed how important data privacy is and what can happen if data is misused.
It definitely serves as a warning, showing how important it is to handle such sensitive information responsibly. It feels like the Cambridge Analytica scandal really changed how we talk about data ethics and how we need to protect ourselves online.
Absolutely. It was a wake-up call for everyone, both individuals and companies. It showed how important it is to be transparent about how data is collected, to have strong security to prevent unauthorized access, and to really understand the ethical implications of how we use data.
Clearly, data has a ton of influence, but this example shows that it can also be misused, and that's a serious problem. Are there any other areas where data is playing a big role?
Oh, absolutely. It's not just the tech industry and politics. Data is transforming healthcare, finance, entertainment, transportation, basically everything.
This is huge.
Mm.
In our next segment, let's dive into some of those other areas where data is making a real difference.
Sounds good. After a short break, we'll look at how data is being used in healthcare to personalize treatments, in finance to fight fraud, and even in entertainment to create the content we consume. So stay tuned.
We'll be right back.
So before the break, we were talking about how data is transforming so many industries. And one area where data is really having a big impact is healthcare. Like imagine a world where treatments are personalized based on your genes, or where we can predict outbreaks and stop them before they spread. That's the power of data-driven healthcare.
Wow, that's incredible. It sounds like data could revolutionize healthcare as we know it. Can you give us some specific examples of how it's already being used to improve patient care?
Sure. One of the most exciting things happening is personalized medicine, where treatments are customized to your specific genetic makeup. By analyzing your DNA, doctors can figure out which medicines will work best for you and minimize side effects.
It's like moving away from that one-size-fits-all approach to medicine towards something more tailored and precise. Is that actually happening now, or is it still just a futuristic idea?
Oh, it's happening now, especially in areas like cancer treatment. Genetic testing is becoming more and more common to help doctors choose the best therapies. Another big area where data is making a difference is in predictive analytics. That's where we use algorithms to analyze huge amounts of data, to find patterns and trends that can help us predict health events.
So we could use data to predict health issues before they even happen. That's pretty amazing, but also a little bit scary. How does that work in real life?
Well, imagine a hospital using data to identify patients who are at high risk of developing certain conditions, like heart disease or diabetes. They could look at medical history, lifestyle factors, even things like environmental data. And if they can identify those high-risk patients early, they can intervene, help them make lifestyle changes, start early treatment, basically reduce their risk of getting sick in the first place.
That could totally change the game. Instead of waiting for people to get sick, we can use data to help them stay healthy. So data is shifting healthcare from being reactive to being proactive. We talked a bit about e-commerce before the break. What are some other ways that data is shaping the world of online shopping?
E-commerce is a great example of how data is changing how we interact with businesses. Companies like Amazon use complex algorithms to analyze all sorts of customer data, like what you've looked at, what you've bought, even what you've said about products and reviews. And they use all of that to create a more personalized shopping experience for you. They can recommend things you might like, even predict what you'll buy before you even know it yourself.
It's like having a personal shopper in your pocket. But is this just about making shopping more convenient, or is there more to it?
Convenience is definitely a big part of it, but it's also a smart strategy for businesses. By understanding your preferences, they can make you more likely to buy from them.
So it's win-win in a way. You get a more personalized experience and they get more sales. But it also feels like it could be a bit intrusive, knowing that they're tracking everything you do.
What about other industries like finance and entertainment? How is data changing those?
In finance, data is really important for fighting fraud and managing risk. Banks use data to analyze millions of transactions and spot any suspicious activity, like someone suddenly spending way more than usual or trying to access their account from a weird location. This helps them prevent fraud and protect their customers. Data is also used to assess creditworthiness, offer personalized financial products, and even predict how the market will move. So data is making the financial system more secure and more efficient. It's definitely a good thing. What about entertainment? We talked about Netflix earlier, but are there other ways data is changing things?
Oh, yeah. Data is impacting everything from what gets made to how it's delivered. Streaming services like Spotify and Apple Music analyze what you listen to and make personalized playlists. They can even recommend new artists you might like based on your tastes. Movie studios are also using data to predict which movies will be successful. They use it to cast actors and decide which projects to fund.
So it sounds like data is taking the guesswork out of entertainment, making sure they create things people actually want to see and hear. But is there a downside to that? Could relying so heavily on data make everything start to feel the same? Does it stifle creativity?
That's a really interesting question. Some people argue that, yeah, too much reliance on data can lead to everything feeling kind of bland and predictable, like everyone is just chasing the same trends. But on the other hand, data can help us find those niche audiences. And it can give creators the information they need to make things that might not have been successful otherwise.
So it's a bit of a double-edged sword. Data can be a really valuable tool, but it's important to use it wisely and not let it crush artistic vision. It's clear that data is changing how we experience entertainment, just like it's changing how we shop, receive healthcare, and manage our money.
Exactly. Data is transforming almost every part of our lives. But as we saw with the Cambridge Analytica scandal, there are risks involved. It's crucial that we think about the ethical side of using data and make sure it's used responsibly.
Speaking of responsibility, what are some of the challenges and ethical considerations that come with dealing with so much data?
Well, one of the biggest concerns is data privacy. As we do more and more online, we create more and more data about ourselves. And it's really important to protect that information and make sure it's not being used in ways we don't agree with.
Yeah, data privacy is a huge topic these days. Are there any laws to protect our data?
Governments all over the world are trying to figure out how to deal with this issue, and they are creating new laws and regulations to protect data privacy. For example, the European Union has the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR. It gives individuals more control over their personal data and sets strict rules for how companies can collect, store, and use that information.
So it sounds like governments are starting to take data privacy seriously. But besides laws, what can we do as individuals to protect our own data?
There are a few things you can do. Be careful about what you share online, especially on social media. Use strong passwords and turn on two-factor authentication whenever you can. And watch out for phishing scams. Don't click on suspicious links or open attachments from people you don't know.
Good advice. It seems like protecting data is a responsibility that everyone shares, individuals, companies, and governments. But even with the best security, data breaches can still happen. What happens when things go wrong and our data ends up in the wrong hands?
Data breaches can be really bad. They can lead to identity theft, financial loss, all sorts of problems. Companies that have data breaches often have to pay big fines. They might even face lawsuits and damage to their reputation. So it's really important for them to have strong security measures to prevent breaches and to have a plan in place for dealing with them quickly and effectively if they do happen.
It seems like data security is something we all need to take seriously. But beyond breaches, are there any other ethical things we should be thinking about?
Absolutely. Data can be used to gain powerful insights, but we have to be careful about biases in the data itself. If the data used to train an algorithm is biased, the algorithm's results will also be biased, and that can lead to unfair or discriminatory outcomes. Like, imagine an algorithm being used to decide who gets hired for a job. If that algorithm is trained on data that reflects historical biases against certain groups, like women or minorities, it might unfairly reject qualified candidates from those groups.
That's a really good point. It's like the saying garbage in, garbage out. If the data is bad, the results will be bad too. How can we make sure the data we're using is fair and unbiased?
We have to carefully examine the data and identify any potential biases, and then take steps to fix them. Maybe we need to collect data from more diverse sources, or adjust the data to account for underrepresentation. We can even develop algorithms that are designed to be fair and equitable from the start.
It sounds like there's a lot of work to do to make sure data is used ethically and responsibly. But even with the challenges, it's clear that data is a powerful force, and it's changing the world in big ways. But is this just happening here, or is it a global thing?
Data is a global force, that's for sure. It's transforming industries and societies everywhere. Countries are investing heavily in data infrastructure, developing national strategies for data. They're even competing to be the best in areas like artificial intelligence and big data analytics. It's like a new kind of geopolitical landscape where data is the key asset. And controlling data can have huge economic and political implications.
Wow, data is playing a major role in the world stage. But is there a risk that this competition for data could lead to conflict, like a new kind of data war?
Yeah, it's a valid concern. As data becomes even more valuable, we could see tension between countries over who has access to data, how it's protected, and how it's used for national security. It's really important that countries talk to each other and work together to create international rules and regulations for how data is used. That way, we can prevent conflict and make sure data is used responsibly.
So data is not only changing industries and societies, but also how countries interact with each other. It's a powerful force that needs to be managed carefully. Speaking of the future, data seems to be changing so quickly. What's next? What does the future hold for data and its impact on our lives?
The future of data is full of possibilities, both exciting and challenging. New technologies like AI, blockchain, and the Internet of Things are creating even more data and giving us new ways to use it. As we keep generating and collecting more data, we need to develop better tools and techniques to manage it, analyze it, and understand what it all means.
It sounds like the data revolution is just getting started, and the future is full of potential, but also uncertainty. Before we wrap up our deep dive, I'd like to ask one final question. What does all of this mean for the average person? How can we navigate this data-driven world and make sense of it all?
In the 21st century, being able to understand data is becoming an essential skill. We need to understand how data is collected, used, and interpreted. We need to be aware of what data we're sharing and make smart choices about our privacy. And most importantly, we need to be critical thinkers. We need to be able to evaluate claims about data and figure out what's true and what's not. In a world that's overflowing with information, that's more important than ever.
That's a powerful message. So it's not just about the technology, it's about a cultural shift where we all become more aware of data and how it's used.
Exactly. The more we understand about data, the better equipped we'll be to navigate this new world and to make sure that data is used to benefit everyone.
So before the break, we were talking about how data is shaping the world. And now I kind of want to shift gears and talk about artificial intelligence, AI. It seems like it's everywhere these days and is revolutionizing everything from how we use technology to how companies do business. But how does AI fit into our conversation about data?
Well, you can't really have AI without data. They're like two sides of the same coin. AI algorithms are the engines that give us insights and make things automatic. But those engines need data to run. The more data you feed an AI system, the more it learns and the better it gets.
So data is like the fuel for the AI engine.
Yeah.
Can you give us some real-world examples of how that works?
Sure, think about those chatbots you see on websites. They're available 24/7. They use natural language processing, which is a type of AI, to understand what you're asking and give you an answer. But those chatbots are only as good as the data they're trained on. The more conversations they've been exposed to, the better they'll be at having a natural conversation.
Well, that makes sense. It's like teaching a kid how to talk. The more words they hear, the better they get at communicating. Are there other examples of how AI uses data to solve real-world problems?
Absolutely. In healthcare, AI is used to analyze medical images like X-rays and CT scans. It can help doctors find things that a human might miss. That early detection can make a huge difference in treatment and can even save lives. And as these AI systems are fed more and more data, they keep getting better.
That's incredible. It seems like AI is really boosting our abilities in areas like medicine, where being accurate and finding things early is so important. But it also sounds like this reliance on data means we have a big responsibility. How do we ensure that AI is using data in an ethical and responsible way?
That's a really important question, and it's something that researchers are always thinking about. One key thing is making sure the data used to train AI is fair. If the data reflects societal biases, those biases will be in the AI's results, and that could lead to unfair or even harmful outcomes.
So just like we talked about earlier, the quality of the data is crucial. It's not just about having a lot of data. It's about making sure the data is representative and doesn't reinforce existing inequalities. What are some other ethical considerations when it comes to AI and data?
Transparency is really important. People need to know how these systems are making decisions that affect them. That means being able to trace the AI's reasoning back to the data and understanding any potential biases.
So it's about being able to explain why an AI made a certain decision. That makes sense, especially in things like healthcare, finance, or criminal justice, where AI systems are making decisions with huge consequences for people.
Absolutely. We can't just blindly trust these systems. We need to understand how they work and what data they're using.
Another important thing is privacy. As AI gets more advanced, it needs more and more personal data. Protecting that data and making sure it's not being abused is crucial. We've talked about the good and the bad of data and AI, and it seems clear that these technologies will be even more important in the future. Are there any new trends that you're particularly excited about?
One area that I find really interesting is how AI is being used with the Internet of Things. As more and more devices connect to the Internet, they generate huge amounts of data about our homes, our cities, even our bodies. AI can then analyze that data to learn things that can improve our lives.
Can you give us some specific examples of how AI and the Internet of Things are making the world more connected and intelligent?
Sure, think about smart cities where traffic lights change based on traffic flow. That can help reduce traffic jams and make things safer. Or imagine smart homes where appliances learn your habits and save energy. Those are just a couple of ways AI and the Internet of Things are making the future more efficient and sustainable.
Those are some really cool ideas. It sounds like data is the foundation for all of this new technology, and AI is the tool that helps us turn that data into useful insights.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. As technology keeps evolving, we're going to see even more amazing things that we can't even imagine right now. It's a really exciting time.
It's definitely mind-blowing to think about all the possibilities. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of data, what are the key things our listeners should take away?
Well, I think the main point is that data isn't just some abstract idea. It's the raw material that's shaping our world. It's driving innovation, changing industries, and affecting how we live and work and interact. Understanding data and how it's used isn't optional anymore. If you want to understand the 21st century, you need to understand data.
That's a powerful message. It sounds like everyone needs to be data literate, not just the tech experts. What advice would you give to someone who wants to get better at understanding data?
Just be curious. Ask questions about how data is being used in your everyday life. Pay attention to the data you're sharing and be smart about your privacy settings. And don't be afraid to learn more about data. There are tons of resources out there to help you become more informed.
That's great advice. It's clear that data is a powerful force that's shaping our world in big ways. We've talked about its value, its impact on different industries, the ethical challenges, and all the amazing possibilities it creates. We hope this deep dive has given you a new understanding of just how important data is, and that it's inspired you to keep learning about this incredible and constantly changing field.
Absolutely. Keep asking questions, keep learning, and keep talking about data. After all, data is everywhere.
And that wraps up our deep dive into the world of data. We hope you found it insightful and interesting. If you like this episode, be sure to subscribe to the deep dive for more fascinating explorations of the most important topics. And don't forget to connect with us on social media and share your thoughts on what you've learned. Until next time, stay curious and keep diving deeper.